What's going on, everybody? Welcome to my Week 12 recap video. I will be recapping all the action that happened this week and giving my thoughts headed into Week 13, which is rivalry weekend of college football. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave your thoughts down below in the comments. And let's get into this. The first game of the day was number 3 Michigan at Maryland. Michigan did win this game 31-24. I should have known Maryland was going to compete in this game as they have played Michigan tough in the past. And Maryland isn't a terrible team. This game also was a trap game between their win against Penn State and their upcoming game against Ohio State. But this game still doesn't change my mind about this Michigan team. I do think they're one of the most complete teams in the country, as they do have a decent offense along with one of the best defenses in the country. But they have shown some weaknesses in the pass defense, and if they play a good passing team, they might crumble. But we won't know until they do play one. But next week is arguably the best game of the whole season against the Ohio State team, whose defense has been really good this year. And they're starting to get their offense going a bit. So it will be interesting to see how Michigan plays against Ohio State. Because Michigan has ran the ball really well this year. But Ohio State has one of the best rush defenses in the country. It should be a battle up front, and I'm definitely hyped for this game. The next game was Chattanooga at number 8 Alabama. Alabama wins this game 66-10. Nothing surprising about this game, and not much to this game, as Alabama did win it big, and they now have to look ahead to their game against Auburn, who is coming off a terrible loss to New Mexico State. Also have to mention, this was another game where a player dropped the ball before scoring. Players do it all the time and never learn. I don't get it at this point. It's kind of embarrassing. But anyways, Alabama did dominate that game. And on to the next game, number 10 Louisville at Miami. Louisville actually wins this game 38-31. This game was a little higher scoring than I expected it to be. Both quarterbacks played a pretty good game. Tyler Van Dyke stepped up for Miami, but it wasn't enough to get the job done. I think with Louisville and Florida State meet in the ACC title game, Louisville will give them a run for their money. Definitely after the Jordan Travis injury, because he should be out for the season. Rutgers at number 12 Penn State. It was a slugfest type of game. Penn State won it 27-6. Drew Aller actually got injured in this game. I believe he didn't play in the second half, but Penn State's defense caused some turnovers and ran the ball pretty well to take this game over, but it was close for a while. But Rutgers ultimately couldn't do enough to win the game. Next game was UL Monroe at number 13 Ole Miss. Ole Miss did win the game 35-3. This game didn't really start until halftime. Ole Miss just started off really sluggish in the first half, only being up 7-3 at halftime. But then they came out in the third quarter and put this game away, scoring 21 consecutive points, which was very expected out of an Ole Miss team who's been pretty decent this year. The next game was number 14 Oklahoma at BYU. Oklahoma did win this game 31-24. Now, I was right on this game. I did predict it to be closer because it was a road game and it was tough weather conditions, but Oklahoma did win this game. Oklahoma's defense caused 3 turnovers to win this game, and the offense did struggle, but Dylan Gabriel did get hurt and taken out in the second half. Next week, they need to be rooting for an Oklahoma State loss to BYU, or Oklahoma won't make it even if they could beat TCU next weekend, because Oklahoma State does have the tiebreaker over Oklahoma. So Oklahoma needs to win next week, along with needing help to get into the Big 12 championship game. The next game was number 24 Tulane at FAU. Tulane did win this game 24-8. It was a good win for Tulane. Michael Pratt did become Tulane's career passing leader, throwing for 3 touchdowns in this game. Tulane's defense also did a pretty good job this week. Next week is going to be a test against a UTSA team that has been playing good football. The winner of Tulane and UTSA will play SMU in the conference championship game, as long as SMU doesn't lose to Navy. Right now, Tulane, SMU, and UTSA are all undefeated in conference play. It should be a good matchup for Tulane next week. Tulane hasn't played anybody good in their last 5 games. So it will be interesting to see how they do against a UTSA team that hasn't really been touched in any of their 7 last games. Every UTSA game since their Tennessee loss, they have won by double digits outside their one game against North Texas, while Tulane has had multiple close calls. The next game was number 22 Utah at number 17 Arizona. Arizona did win this game 42-18. This game is one of the 2 Pac-12 top 25 matchups this week, and this one had a much different outcome than the other one, as Arizona handled Utah pretty well at home. If you're an Arizona fan, you have to be happy to see how far this team has come from 2 years ago being 1-11, and now they're most likely going to be 9-3 in the top 15 and getting a decent bowl game. And I don't think this team is done, because it's going to be interesting to see what they can do in the Big 12. But Utah will also be good next year, with having Cam Rising back for his last season. It's sad that the Pac-12 is gone after this year, but I will admit I'm excited for the future of some of these teams and the future of the 12-team playoff. The next game is number 1 Georgia at number 18 Tennessee. Georgia did win this game 38-10. Something to learn when you're playing against Georgia is don't get too confident when you go up early, because Georgia will bite back before you even have time to react, and then the game will be out of reach. And that's basically what happened in this game, as Tennessee went up 7-0 after a long run to start the game, but they only scored a field goal the rest of the game. Anybody who has to play this Georgia team should be scared. It's looking likely that Georgia has a shot at three-peating, but their SEC championship game against Alabama and Nick Saban is going to be a good one. And you have to believe Nick Saban has revenge on that team's mind. But I don't know if there's anything Nick Saban could do or say to get that team ready against the Georgia team, who has been on a roll and on a 28-game win streak. If anybody can stop this team, though, it has to be Nick Saban and Alabama. But we'll have to wait and see. I'm definitely excited for that big matchup between Georgia and Alabama. The next game was Illinois at number 16, Iowa. Iowa did win this game 15-13. Iowa keeps building themselves up, and their wins may not be pretty, but a win is a win. But they will surely be in the top 15 if they win out and make the Big Ten championship. So that's definitely a resume builder for the winner of Michigan and Ohio State. And just a fun fact, Iowa had a safety, touchdown, and another touchdown, which their PAT got blocked. I did predict Illinois to pull off the upset, as I do think Iowa is due for a loss. But maybe that loss doesn't come until the Big Ten Championship. But the game against Nebraska should be an interesting one next week. And for Illinois, they got a game against a very improved Northwestern team from where they were the last couple years, which Illinois will be fighting to become bowl eligible. The next game was Wake Forest at number 19, Notre Dame. Notre Dame did win this game 45-7. I didn't really pay attention to this game at all, but Notre Dame does win this game. They had 450 total yards of offense as Sam Hartman played against his former team and showed them why he left Wake Forest. Because Wake Forest didn't stand a chance since the beginning. Notre Dame has a chance to finish 9-3 as they do play a bad Stanford team next week, and Notre Dame might finish in the top 15, which will be very good for Ohio State's resume. The next game was number 20, North Carolina at Clemson. Clemson won this game 31-20. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Clemson is a solid team with a lot of talent. They just really struggled this year for some reason, probably because of the coaching. But Clemson has been on a roll lately, so this was a good win for Clemson, and they put up 466 yards of offense. Clemson's offense has been playing a lot better, and they might be looking into the top 25, possibly with a shot of getting ranked, as they do have multiple top 20 wins now. The next game was Minnesota at number 2, Ohio State. Ohio State did win this game 37-3. Kyle McCord threw for 2 touchdowns, 212 yards, and Ohio State ran for around 200 yards. This Ohio State team is starting to get their offense going, definitely with having their star running back back. That sounds weird. But this game was against a bad Minnesota team, so I'm still not very impressed. Kyle McCord still has more to prove. The defense has won them the big games this year, but they have Michigan next week, and Michigan is a lot better than Penn State and Notre Dame. Maybe not a lot better, but they're definitely better. But it will be interesting to see what happens. This game has a lot of stories around it, including Michigan starting a freaking GoFundMe going into their game against Ohio State. The whole investigation is crazy, and Michigan football is really getting out of hand lately. But Michigan is favorites in that game, and I do think Michigan is the better team. I honestly might lean towards Ohio State winning, just because Ohio State has been playing better on the offensive side lately, and Michigan might be distracted and not focused enough on this game. But either way, it's kind of hard to predict this game, but this game has a lot on the line, so I will have to think about who will win this game. And on to the next game, number 6, Oregon at Arizona State. Oregon did win this game 49-13. I'm very pleased with how our team played. Bo Nix had a spectacular first half, throwing for 400 yards and 6 touchdowns alone in the first half, just the first half. They went up 42-0 in the first half. Bo Nix has a big shot at winning the Heisman this year. Oregon is a team that hasn't really been paying attention to the outside noise around college football. This team stays focused and comes out to play good football every week. But their schedule hasn't been super tough, and despite having the largest margin of victory lately and handling an Arizona State team who's coming off a pretty good win to UCLA, Oregon played so good that they benched their players after a drive in the third quarter. They will have their second biggest test of the season against an Oregon State team that has played everybody tough, including only losing by 2 to Washington. I believe Oregon is around 11-point favorites against Oregon State, the last time I checked. So Oregon should win that game, but it's not going to be an easy one. It's the last civil war between these two teams, and it comes at a time where both Oregon teams are playing really good football. So at least that's a plus. But with the win, Oregon locks himself in the Pac-12 championship game against Washington in a huge rematch with playoff implications. Should be an exciting couple weeks for Oregon football, but it could also be heartbreaking. The next game was number 22, Oklahoma State at Houston. Oklahoma State did win this game 43-30. For a while, it was looking like Oklahoma State wasn't going to bounce back from last week's terrible loss, and it was looking like there was no hope for Oklahoma State. But Oklahoma State did come back to this game, and they outscored them 24-7 in the second half. And with the win against BYU next week, that clinches Oklahoma State a spot in the Big 12 title game. The next game was North Alabama at number 4, Florida State. Florida State did win this game 58-13. And on a more serious note, I got a feel for Jordan Travis and the whole Florida State fan base for that injury Jordan Travis suffered this weekend. It was heartbreaking to watch, and I'm not even a Florida State fan, but I have kept an eye on this Florida State team, and I did make a video talking about this team and how spectacular of a quarterback Jordan Travis was. But at the end of the day, injuries do happen, and Jordan Travis is only human. But I do really hope Jordan Travis is going to end up being okay. But onto the game, Florida State did start this game off slow. But after going down 13-0, they came back and won 58-13. Not really much surprising to this game. But there's got to be more questions on if Florida State can make the playoffs without Jordan Travis. But they have Florida and Louisville left, and if they win out, they should be in. But it's really not an easy road for Florida State. The next game was number 21 Kansas State at 25 Kansas. Kansas State did win this game 31-27. Kansas State actually came back from an 11-point deficit in this game. Kansas played a pretty decent game as they did outgain Kansas State, but the turnovers really hurt Kansas in the end. Kansas State's defense did win them the game, and now Kansas is done in the Big 12 championship race. While Kansas State is still alive, but they do need a lot of help, and they need to beat a pretty decent Iowa State team next weekend at home. Next game was number 5 Washington at number 11 Oregon State. Washington actually won this game 22-20. The Pac-12 showed a different type of fight in this game. It wasn't a pretty game, and it was a slugfest, and ultimately a Washington safety in the first quarter made this game a 2-point win. But both defenses were playing super tough. This was a game that was projected to be a higher scoring game, and even with Washington not playing a great game, they went on the road and beat a top 12 Oregon State team in Corvallis, and a place where Oregon State hardly loses lately. But Washington's defensive line might be very underrated as they really took Oregon State's offense to the limit, and I think it's time for Washington to get more national respect, and they should definitely jump Florida State. They have the better resume, and there could even be a debate for them at number 3, but I know they won't actually jump that high. Washington gave up a lot of yards this year, but what did I say about this team? When their defense needs to show up in the end, it will. Michael Penix Jr. struggled in this game, and the weather conditions were tough to play in, and Oregon State's defense did a good job. But when the game was on the line, they got Roman Dubze one-on-one and threw it up, and of course he made the play. And Washington put the game away. This Washington team really fights, but it's going to be an interesting rematch against Oregon if that's the Pac-12 championship game. While Washington may be overlooked by their 2 bad games against bad Pac-12 teams, they still won them, and I think it's time to put those games in the past. Next game was Florida at number 9 Missouri. Missouri won this game 33-31. This was a battle of 2 offenses that had 500 total yards and 1,008 combined between the 2 teams. So props to Missouri on the season they've had, but for Florida fans, you did play a tough game, but it's gotta be heartbreaking to see your team fall short week after week. The next game was number 7 Texas at Iowa State. Texas did win this game 26-16. I said this was going to be a tough game for Texas, and they did struggle for a while, but props to this Texas team for overcoming the odds to win this game. Texas is looking more likely to make the playoffs, but they still have a game against a Texas Tech team that can definitely put up a fight. The Big 12 conference is a lot better than people think. There's a lot of decent teams that may not be ranked, but they have teams that can really fight in this conference. If Texas wins out, they should be in the playoffs though, unless you get unlucky. And on to the last game, Georgia State at number 14 LSU. If LSU only had 1 or 2 losses, it would be likely that Jayden Daniels would be the favorite for the Heisman. But not really much to say about this game, as it was just a filler game for LSU's big game coming up against Texas A&M next week. But I will say Jayden Daniels is amazing. But anyways, that's going to do it for my Week 12 recap video. Next week is rivalry week, so I will have some videos coming up on this upcoming weekend. So tune in for more content. We're on the road to 500 subs, so do me a favor and subscribe to the channel, and also leave a like and comment if you enjoyed Week 12 of college football. And peace out, guys.